Leading a community-driven mission she calls Scaling Intimacy, Imani Ellis is redefining how we gather, create, and build belonging. As the founder of CultureCon and the Creative Collective NYC, Imani has built more than a platform. She has cultivated a cultural movement that puts authenticity, connection, and purpose at the forefront. With headlining speakers like Spike Lee, CultureCon has become one of the most influential creative gatherings in the United States, celebrating and elevating multicultural voices across industries. I caught up with Imani fresh off her creative residency in Grenada in 2024, where she reflected on the power of rest, staying rooted in your why, and the lessons that continue to shape her mission. In this intimate conversation, she shares the values, turning points, and bold decisions that have defined her journey, from her one-bedroom apartment to leading one of the most community-driven platforms in America. Welcome, Imani. It's so great to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Hannah. I'm excited to be here.
Very cool. So we're going to dive right in because there's so much. You have achieved so much over the years, and there's so much I want to cover with you today in your career that I hope will empower and inspire other women, especially women of color, Black and brown people everywhere, which I know has been your mission. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But first of all, I'm always curious about the backstory, a bit about your upbringing and what values or experiences from your early years shaped the woman that you are today.
Absolutely. I grew up in the South. My parents were both preachers. They met in Bible college. And a lot of the values that were instilled from me from a young age was the importance of community, the importance of kindness, the importance of giving people dignity. Everyone needs an opportunity to be seen. Everyone is someone, and no one is better than someone else. And I think for me, as I went out into the world, I took a lot of that with me. And so I was very curious about all types of people. And I really loved bringing people together. And so oftentimes when I look back as a little girl, I was bringing people over my house for different things then. And you fast forward to CultureCon and kind of see that I have not strayed too far away from that.
That's incredible. That is really incredible and shows that even our childhood has, if we're in a place where we're confused, we can always look back on our childhood and find some answers there. So were there specific moments or influences in your childhood that ignited your passion for creativity and connection? Like, was there a pivotal moment that made you realize, this is what I want to do?
It's so interesting because I think my childhood was a series of different explorations.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, as children, they know what they want to be when they grew up. I did not. My parents really allowed me to be like a child. And so I was a Disney princess. I was a ballerina for 11 years. I did ballet. So I thought I wanted to be a ballerina. I then ran track in high school and college. And it wasn't until high school that my mom said, all right, okay, we did childhood. What do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, where you're going to college. And I was like, oh, I don't get to play forever. And I said, I think I want to be a talent agent. I wanted to work in New York City with a lot of people. And I think the interesting thing about your journey and your spiritual walk is sometimes the dreams you have for yourself, you don't realize them, but they're a bit limiting. It's based off of what you've seen as possible. And so I wanted to be a publicist, but God had bigger plans for me. I ended up becoming a publicist and working in New York City for 10 years. But CultureCon was never a dream that I had as a child. I didn't even know what a CultureCon was. But all my life experiences kind of came together. And I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about life is I no longer do 5-year, 10-year plans. I have hopes, but I try not to get too attached to the plan.
Hey Manny, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps as you're speaking because, what I see that has also been true for my journey. I always believe that God lets us like do what we're so bent on doing. Like, okay, go. You want to be a publicist, go do that. Go enjoy yourself, have fun. We're going to use all that later, but I have a bigger plan for your life. And it's funny how what you say is so true that we always base what we want to do based on what we see because we don't even realize that we're creating within that limited container of what's around us versus what's actually possible for us.
It's exactly right. And I love that you said, God is like, he's so generous, right? He's like, go, okay, go do your mission. And it's not even that it's not important, but like I think that he's so generous that he allowed me to do what I thought my dream was, all
Yeah.
the while knowing that there was something else greater.
Amazing. And so you talked about being a publicist. Just tell us a little bit about what your first job was and how that experience really played a pivotal role for what was next for you.
Absolutely. So I had a fire in me, as soon as I realized I had to get a job, I was obsessed with making sure that it was going to be a career that I enjoyed. And so I, have always had a very laser focused kind of vision, borderline obsession, when something gets put on my heart. Now, in between time, I'm just kind of open to what it is, but it had been put on my heart. I was going to work in entertainment. And not only entertainment, I wanted to work at NBC. It was the first ever television network in America. And it was just as American pie. And I wanted to go to New York City and I wanted to swim with the biggest sharks. I wanted to see if I could really stand next to New Yorkers. And so
Yes.
I got my first job out, I did a few internships in New York City. And I got my first job as an NBC page at NBC, very humbling job. You're giving tours, you're getting coffee, you're learning, the business. And I was able to get my first kind of assignment at Bravo TV. And I was a coordinator. And again, it was the bottom of the totem pole. I was coming in first, I was leaving last. Anything that I was asked to do, from running errands to getting coffee to, drafting bios, I was doing that. And I loved it. I mean, I was so excited to work in New York City. You couldn't tell me anything. I was walking to work every day like, this is amazing. And I was so grateful. And, I think one of the things that set me apart was there wasn't a job too little for me. Like, if you told me to go get the coffee, not a drip of coffee was going to spill in
Yes.
the coffee
You did
cup.
it with excellence.
I did it with excellence and I did it with gratitude because I understood how competitive the industry was. And I think a lot of that, over the years, I kept that same spirit. At NBC, publicity is all about really working with talent and making sure that they're putting their best foot forward, whether it's in interviews, whether it's in, the different TV shows they're showing up in. And so I did publicity for hundreds of different talent, and I got to learn about people. And
Wow.
I got to learn about how to communicate with people. And I got to learn what motivates people. And it was a masterclass in communication. And so I stayed at NBC for 10 years. I left as a vice president of communications, and it was a dream job. I can't say enough about how much fun I had in that role, but it was also very hard because
Yes.
the stakes were very high because of publicity. It's a very forward facing job. So if you say the wrong thing, it's not like you just said it to one person,
Correct.
you're saying it to thousands of people. And
Yeah.
so I made so many mistakes along the way, but I had a generous boss who taught me that mistakes are okay. Um, as long as you're not making the same one over and over and over again.
Yes, yes. So I love that you said that.
about the mistakes that you made along the way? Because I think sometimes someone might see you and it's like Imani gets it right. Like everything Imani does turns to gold. Let's talk about, your time at NBC and bridge the gap with Creative Collective New York and CultureCon. What were some
Yes.
of the mistakes that in your early career that you made played a pivotal role in making these two ventures the success they are today?
I love that question because I feel like you can learn so much from mistakes. I think a lot of times because I felt imposter syndrome, because I wasn't from New York, I was from the South. I said, yes, ma'am. I kind of stood out a little bit. And so I had this kind of imposter syndrome that people didn't think I was as smart or
Wow.
people didn't think I was as fast. And when I first started working at NBC, the other girls were fast. They could retain information fast, they could type fast. And there were times where I could not keep up. And so the first few months, I had to come in 2 hours early so that
Wow.
I could be at the same pace as them. And I, that was an opportunity where I could have just said, I'm not as smart, but I knew I was smart. I just needed to learn a new pace. And one of the mistakes I made coming out of imposter syndrome is if I didn't know the answer, I would make up something because I didn't want anyone to think I wasn't smart.
Mm,
And
mhm.
I took some of those mistakes to Creative Collective. If someone would ask me a question, I would just, well, and I'll figure it out later. And what I learned is that the bravest, most confident people are able to say, I don't know,
That's
but I'm
it.
but I'm gonna find out.
That's it.
And so I learned that if I just give myself a second, I don't have
Yes,
to always, no one knows everything.
that's
And
it.
when I freed myself of, oh my goodness, I'm one of the only Black women here.
Yeah.
What does I don't know look like? It looks, I feel like I'm representing my whole race. And so
Yes.
I was able to say, Imani, you're human. You
Yeah.
don't know everything. And when I released myself of not having to know everything and asking other people what they would do, I
Sure.
set myself free.
That's such a powerful thing. And, it's something that I've encountered in my own life and with a lot of the people that I work with, entrepreneurs that I work with, is that especially coming from the Caribbean, you had to answer fast. You had to know the answer at school, or you would get the ruler or whatever. It was like hardcore. And I was traumatized by that as a child. But later in life, I realized that I didn't have to pretend I know. And as you said, I started realizing that the most successful people in the room seem to not know anything, but they seem to just have all the right people who know what to do around them. And that's
Yes.
okay.
That's okay. And my boss, same thing. She would build a team around her. And I became, her right-hand woman in a lot of different things. And I was able, when she didn't know, she'd say, Imani, what do you think? And
Yeah.
that taught me to empower a team, which is how you build anything, really, is with other smart, brilliant people.
That is so true. That is so true. And so Creative Collective New York began in a one-bedroom apartment. Okay. How did your vision evolve in those early days to having a small gathering in your place to becoming a nationally recognized platform? How do you go from a one-bedroom event to thousands of people?
A lot of it is consistency and really understanding the why. And I know we hear that a lot, but I never dreamed that this would be a company. I never read a business plan book.
Sure.
I just knew that I wanted to solve a problem. And I think most great ideas start with solving a problem. If you're driven by, you know, fame, exposure, money, those things will not sustain you. And so for me, I look back at, 22-year-old Imani, she was lonely and she was living in corporate America, learning all of these things and just wondering, where can I share this information? And come to find out, when you identify a problem, chances are there are more people who feel that way. And so, to answer your question of how it scaled, I think that, when people feel seen, they want to feel that again. And so people
Yes.
came over and they felt seen and they bloomed and they invited their friends. We didn't have marketing budgets or billboards, but we had a collective voice. And so we quickly had to move out of my apartment. And I remember just thinking, oh my goodness, this is growing. And I think one of the things we're really excited about is getting back to those small meetups because that is what feels so special.
The intimacy. And so was there a particular moment? I know you said that, okay, there are many people here, we need to get out of the apartment, but was there a moment that you realized that this was going to be a game changer for an entire nation of people and even attracts international audiences coming to be a part of it as well?
I was very late to this, Hannah. I think I just had assumed it would always be someone else who would create the thing, and then I would go to the thing. And so I think a lot of times my friends and my family were seeing things before I was seeing them, because a lot of times, for better or for worse, I mentally stayed in the living room.
Yeah.
So in front of me would be thousands of people. And I'd be talking to every single one of them, like we're just all hanging out. And I think the big aha moment was when Spike Lee came to CultureCon.
Right.
He was our very first keynote speaker. And he said to me, "This is special." And I remember looking at him, looking at me, and being like, "Who are you looking at? What do you?" And so I think sometimes it's a little bit delayed in terms of recognizing that something is special. But I still feel that way. I go into CultureCon, 10,000 people, and I'm like, what is happening? And I'm grateful because we need these spaces more than ever to pour into each other and build together. And it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah, I feel your heart. And I think what I love about what you just shared is that it shows me how still grounded you are. And that's a beautiful thing because it keeps you connected to the root of CultureCon and not, as you said, the star-studdedness of it or the grandeur of it, but more of the mission of it and that connection that you so desire within your own self with others.
Absolutely. It really is community centric, right? So it's not ImaniCon. It's very important that the community stays at the center. And so that's why we have focus groups. And, those focus groups are monthly meetings where attendees of all different types of backgrounds are telling us what they want more of, what they want less of. So I'm very much clear that I am in service to the community. And I think that has been kind of what keeps us going.
I love it. And so how do you balance staying true to your mission while continuously innovating? Because obviously, when you set it up, it was intimate, it was a small group. Now it's scaling to like tens of thousands of people. How do you keep the mission at the center and keep that same level of intimacy that makes everyone feel seen?
Well, I love this because one of the things we've really worked on anchoring is scaling intimacy. And so we look at, the formulaic approach of what made an apartment feel so special, right? It was when you go to someone's home, they've put so much intention to the guest list and the seating chart and what you're going to eat. And CultureCon, we take that same kind of formula and we scale it. And so when people come to CultureCon, they're greeted with a personal message that says, "Welcome home."
Yeah.
And they're paired with other creatives so that a huge event can feel really, really intimate. And they get to kind of team up with those creatives and choose their own adventure at CultureCon, because we know it's very intimidating, to come to an event sometimes by yourself, sometimes you don't know anyone. And so we're really thinking about, what would this event feel like if I came for the first time and I didn't know anyone? And we put a lot of different kind of, I think, thoughtfulness around that experience so that people, whether you're coming for the first time or the fifth time, it feels new. For the first time ever this year, we did a theme. And I think we're going to bring that back for sure next year, because it's just, even though you become a grown-up, we're all kids inside. And I think you need a chance to just laugh and be free and lower the stakes.
I love it. I love it. So you're still staying true to that feeling that you always had, that you didn't want to give up the playtime. You want to incorporate that everywhere. And so What is, and by the way, I love the term scaling intimacy because I haven't heard anyone like put it that way. And it's such an incredible insight. And so, what is the biggest lesson you've learned about leadership through your experiences running these two platforms, the Creative Collective and CultureCon?
I've learned so much about leadership. If you need a mirror of what you need to learn, become an entrepreneur because it's going to show you all of your Achilles heels. I've learned that I was such a people pleaser and sometimes at the detriment of my own well-being. And so I would give, never considering that I was exhausted. And that's how Creative Residency was born, was I had nothing left to give myself. I did not hold myself in high regard. I was like, I will do it later. They need me now. And there is a time and a place for sacrifice,
Yes.
but you can't always be sacrificing yourself. I've
Mhm.
also learned that sometimes things are hard and you really want to spend time figuring out how to make a hard thing not hard. And I've actually found comfort in saying, this is hard, but we can do it.
Yes.
Sometimes I think people are like, oh, like they spend so much time wishing it wasn't hard.
Right.
It is. It is.
It is.
And so now what are we going to do about it? And so now that I'm able to recognize that leading a team of this size and scaling this quickly is a challenge, it's also equally rewarding. And so I'm able to understand that both of those feelings can exist in one
Interesting.
experience.
I love that. And, it brought to mind what Jim Rohn, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a self-help motivational speaker from the past. Anyway, he said, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better.
Well, because it's building, again, it's building your character and
Correct.
where you're going, you need these skills. So
Exactly. And so, what do you hope that participants take out of CultureCon when they do attend? What are you hoping they will achieve beyond participating in the event?
I've heard so many beautiful stories of people coming to CultureCon and it changing their life. One, exposure. When you see more things, you realize all of the things that are possible. I think true community and connection, we are the loneliest generation of all time.
Yes.
Because we see each other on social, but we're not seeing each other.
Right.
And so I want people to go back to building community again. I'm very inspired by the Harlem Renaissance and this collective economics, seeing a small business owner and not just posting them on social, buying their products.
That's
Um,
right.
and then I think education, we've got so much talent. And I want to just make sure that creatives are empowered as we go into the creator economy, not only with the, ideas and the mood boards, but
Yeah.
the business acumen. Are you protecting your business? And if you aren't the one to do your finances, do you have, those systems in place?
That's so important. And so, speaking about that, if you could go back and give yourself some advice on when you were starting out, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. I wouldn't spend so much time thinking that that I wasn't, that something like this couldn't come out of me. I
Wow.
spent so much time doubting what was right in front of me. And so you asked, when did I know the moment? I mean, it took me almost a year and a half to even realize it was real. And so I'm trying to shorten that window in
Right.
terms of having an idea and not spending so much time being like, but I don't have, it's like, yes, you do have great ideas. And so I would tell younger Imani to not spend so much time in self-doubt.
I love it. I love that so much. And so, let's talk about your time in the Caribbean. Was it your first time visiting the Caribbean, by the way?
My first time ever. I cannot believe it. It was incredible.
Amazing. And so you spent your 2024 creative residency in Grenada, and I love that you explained where it came from. What drew you to the island, and how did the experience influence your own creativity and vision?
Oh my goodness. Well, for my first creative residency, I was in Paris.
Yeah.
And when it came time to my second creative residency, I really wanted to be grounded. I wanted to be in nature. I wanted to not be on the go
Yeah.
and I wanted to be inspired. And so I put it out to my community. Where should I go? And, I heard back, Grenada, Nigeria. And I said, oh, Grenada. Oh, that's interesting. And I had a friend, Tennille Clark, who was incredible. And she really opened my eyes to the possibilities of Grenada. And I made sure to have no expectations. I knew that I wanted to go in with just an openness to the culture, an openness to the pace. And I was blown away. I was there for, 9 days and was able to partner with the Tourism Board of Grenada for the most thoughtful trip. Started the trip in the country at Six Senses, and
Yes.
trip in the city at Mount Cinnamon, had so much soursop juice. It was coming out of my ears.
It's the
I,
best juice, I
it was
have to
the
say.
best juice. And I think, the generosity of Grenada, the the relaxation and the pace. I don't think I can ever return to like things get busy, but the franticness,
Yeah.
I left that in
You love
Grenada.
that, and you're now scented.
I can't go back.
Yes. You know what? I think because I'm from St. Lucia, which I hope your next residency is St. Lucia. What I found is whenever because I spend a lot of time in Europe, and I love it because I get inspired on a different level. Paris is always such a beautiful city. I spend a lot of time in Munich, so it's a different kind of vibe with the German culture. But when I'm in the Caribbean, I'm so like I can think clearly.
Yes.
I have my center and I feel more connected to self and even to God because it's like you're so surrounded by the greenery. It's incredible. So go ahead.
No, I agree. I felt a return to myself. I felt a closeness to God. I felt small, and not in a way that is insignificant, but in a way that I don't have to hold the whole world in my hands, and that
Mm.
I don't hold the world in my hands.
Do you feel like that some way sometimes that you
Before,
feel?
I think, sometimes, we talked about sometimes being the only, or making mistakes out loud. It can kind of feel like there's a lot of pressure. And there is a lot of pressure, but you also have to remind yourself that pressure is a privilege.
Yes.
The privilege to be able to create these events. And so I'm so grateful.
And so Grenada has this rich cultural heritage. What are moments during your time there that left a specific lasting impression on you?
Oh my goodness. We saw the underwater sculpture garden that paid tribute to the slaves, some who were sick and were tossed overboard, some who decided they did not want to be slaves. They'd rather, go to the sea. And that really touched me. I felt I just felt so much grief for that. And I also felt the privilege of a baton being passed for the doors that we have to open for those who come after us for their sacrifice. Um,
Yes.
we also were able to go to learn how chocolate was made. We went to try the rum of Grenada, the distillery, which was lovely. We went to the waterfalls. I mean, I truly could not get enough. I
Amazing.
think we went to the forts, where the French first landed.
Yes.
I love history. I love knowing who was there. And so it was incredible. Like you can even see when I think about it, I kind of go to a different place because
Totally.
it
Totally.
was
And you got to
beautiful.
see where the guys were shot on the fort during the
I
revolution.
didn't see the exact space, but yes, I saw the fort and I learned the story. We sat down with the historian of Grenada, had dinner with him, and I had to get his number. I was like, we're having a follow-up call. I have so many questions of what happened next. He was like, anytime. So
Amazing.
yes.
Amazing. Amazing. And so for aspiring women entrepreneurs, what are the three qualities or strategies you believe are vital to success in today's competitive landscape?
Definitely resiliency. The answer is not always yes. And it's okay to kind of take a step back when you're rejected. but you can't allow other people's vision of you to become your vision of yourself. You have to be resilient. The second is consistency. I think you can't depend on how you're feeling on if you're going to show up because it'll never get done.
Yeah.
Resiliency, consistency. And then I think the third is really just integrity, just being who you say that you are in any room. I think sometimes people are surprised. They'll DM me and I respond. Like, why wouldn't I respond? And so I think as things scale, it can be easy to kind of forget why you started. And so that's why you want to keep returning to yourself. Take a creative residency, return to how it began, and you'll be very successful.
I love what you said about just going back to why you started, because I think it can be so easy with success to become disconnected to what was driving you in the first place. And it just warms my heart to hear you say that, because it's such an important piece that we can lose sight of very quickly. And so I want to know from you, like, some of the ways that you actually stay grounded and you stay in your original why.
I think, the first was disconnecting myself as this business being my baby, because sometimes it can be very easy that the business becomes your whole personality. It's like you love it so much that you're literally obsessed. And
Yes.
so I try my best. When it's CultureCon season, my friends and family are so gracious to me. But when it's not, I have to get back to friend mode and put other people first. And I think that's a big part of staying grounded. The second is family. They're always going to see me as Imani first, and they're always very proud of me, but I can walk around in a bonnet and it's just what it is. It's family, and you need, whether it's family or close friends, you need people that, whether you decided you don't want to do a business a day more in your life, would still show up for you. And then you got to find other hobbies. What else do you like to do outside of the business? I love going to estate sales. I love going to history
Okay,
museums.
so girl, I hope we do meet up somewhere, because that's my thing.
My whole house is just like estate sale
Little
finds.
treasures. Yes, me
And
too.
my little treasures, like a little mermaid. I just put little trinkets all around. And so that's my happy place. And so
Yeah.
you got to find what's your happy place?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, my happy place is the ocean, you know.
Yeah.
I love, because when I'm near the ocean or I'm snorkeling or something, reminds me how big the world is. And as you said, how small I am in the grand scheme of things, and not small like to diminish myself, but to really understand that there's something bigger.
Yes.
And that really helps me stay centered for sure.
I completely agree. Standing in the ocean, I was humbled. Um, I always am humbled in the face of nature, and I think that nature, it can represent God, and that I'm not taking on this ocean. I am humbled at this very moment, and I love that feeling. I really do.
I love it. So as we wrap up today, Manny, what's next for you? What's the bigger vision that you're moving into, or that you hope to create as a legacy?
I think for me, it's really understanding the needs of the community and building, solutions for those needs. So right now, it's community building, and so many beautiful things can come out of that. I want people to feel empowered, whether it is, figuring out initiatives that surround mental health, free economic programs, mentorship programs. We're really going to be rolling out over the next few weeks just more community programs that can sustain the community as they kind of face uncertainty. And so we're kind of here to be that North Star for them. And a lot more announcements to come, but it's all going to center around these community initiatives, so that Black and Brown creatives can feel seen. We see them, and we want them to know that they're cared for.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you were so generous with your time. I really enjoyed speaking to you. I felt your heart. I felt your authenticity in this moment. And I just want to congratulate you for following this path and staying so grounded in the mission and in the people and really serving and that service that it's so needed. I know in America, it's such a big thing with the racial disparity, the racial inequity. And I'm really, really excited. I'm going to be at CultureCon next year. I've already decided that.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you. It's going to be amazing. I think, again, as we keep getting bigger, we keep prioritizing intimacy. So thank you for your time. And it was lovely to speak with you.
I hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Imani Ellis, founder of CultureCon. One of the key takeaways for me was this idea that you can scale intimacy. And this stands out because I encounter entrepreneurs in service-based industries, and also as one myself, who've always felt like scaling too big would take away the personalization and the intimacy of the offer that you bring to the table. There are ways to find the formula of what is it that works when you're operating at a smaller scale to bring it to a larger scale of people in a way that elevates the mission, the purpose, and propels and empowers many people to move forward through your work. You can visit our website at www.culturelife.org, and as always, live the cultured life.